Okay.
Okay.
I should have brought my City Life score.
Told me
I don't
about
have
it.
It's downstairs. 'Cause that's kind of a cool story. Like you gave me that when you came to Eastman in
Gosh.
1999.
1999.
Okay.
You're going to remember 1999? I can't even remember what I had for breakfast yesterday.
1999 is a lot easier to remember than breakfast.
You're right. 1937 is easier to remember than what I had for breakfast.
1937?
Well, a little bit.
That's the year you were born, right?
Yeah, I was born in 36, but I mean, no, what I mean is, you certain early memories stick in your head, partly because I was born in the age when people took home movies.
Yeah.
And I saw them a lot. And now I don't know what it is. If I remember the movie or I remember the event.
Yeah, right. Right.
You must have had that. Most kids have had that.
You have lots of like home movies from when you were a kid?
Well, when I was a kid, they're probably all ruined by now, but I mean, they were 8mm.
Yeah.
But I mean, my father would take out his 8mm, and we would have, movies at home. And I remember events that I think really are the events from the movies, and not the events themselves.
Right. You remember seeing the movies.
Yeah, and I remember really, that's what I'm remembering. I'm not remembering what actually happened.
Yeah. That's amazing to have those, though.
I don't know if I have any more. They were sitting in a laundry room in 258 Broadway for 25 years, so they're probably all like, glue at this point.
Oh, man.
Yeah, we never bothered to put them on VHS, let alone anything later.
Yeah, right.
Someday, maybe, we'll see.
Yeah. Well, we've been doing, I've been, with my
keeping up to date?
Yeah, we've been transferring a lot of old film onto digital. And it's wonderful. It's wonderful to go back and see all that stuff.
Photos, I see. That sort of brings back, because then you have to fill in the context.
Yeah.
Going on.
I remember the year you were born because you were born the same year that my mom was born.
36?
But I always forget which parent you are because my dad was born in 37 and my mom was in 36. And Philip Glass was born in 37.
That's right.
So I remember which is which. Well, I mean, there's a lot of history in this show for us because, we... Like the beginning, I think in many ways the beginning of Alarm Will Sound, even though it didn't exist in name yet, was when you came to Eastman in 1999.
Right.
And the City Life score that I'm playing on, conducting from, is the one that you gave me at that gig.
Did I give it to you because you were doing it or because I wanted you to do it?
No, you came, that was, a fairly new piece.
It was 95, I think it was.
Yeah, 95, right. And you came and you gave a lecture. So you came and we did Tehillim and music for 18 musicians. And you gave a lecture about city life, and afterwards you just had these like scores. Here, do you want?
I never give a lecture. I just passed out the score, played the piece, and then took questions.
Right. But then you also, I remember you talking then. We did Taylor, and we were all kids. Like we were in our, early 20s. Some of us undergrad, some of us grad students, and I remember said then that America needs an ensemble like what they have in Europe with them.
Was that when I first said it to you?
Yeah.
Well, you've got to remember that for me, I started going to Europe in 1971, and of course, mostly I went with my own ensemble, which was then originally 5 or 6 people. But by the time we did music for 18, we were going over with 18, sometimes 19 people with a techie.
Right.
And it wasn't until about late 70s, early 80s that I finally wrote a piece consciously for another ensemble, which was the Nederlands Blazer Ensemble.
Right, music for a large ensemble.
Music for a large ensemble. And also, by the by, they played octet, the original octet.
Right.
And that was the beginning of starting to... And I continued writing for my own ensemble, but suddenly these other ensembles, I became very much aware of. Ensemble Moderne in Germany, London Zeppelin in England, Ensemble Intercontemporaire in France, Schoenberg Ensemble in Italy, on and on and on. And I began to realize, these are ensembles of minimum of about 15 people.
Yeah.
And they can expand. And they expand almost to 30 people. And they're in business. That's what they do. They get up in the morning and that's their gig. Most of them have an electronics guy who's part of the ensemble, and it's his gig.
And we're working on that part.
Yeah, and so I thought, why is it that we don't have this in America? And of course the answer is it's very hard to support it. All these ensembles were getting good government support, which they're now getting a whole lot less of, but because they're there, they've been able to switch over to some private support or what have you. And in America, there were lots and lots of groups of 3 people, 4 people, 5 people. Even Bang on the Cannon is basically a quintet, sextet. So what I was saying to you, because I saw a glint in your eye somehow that you had this idea in mind.
Yeah.
Well, then you had the group in Eastman.
Right.
Okay, it's easy to have the group in Eastman because Eastman's paying the bills.
Right.
And everybody's sitting in their dorm room, and it's all very cool. What if you were living in California and living in Detroit and living wherever?
Right, which is where we are now.
Exactly, but what I mean is because you had people who themselves saw the wisdom of that and wanted to be a part of it.
Right.
It's persisted, and it's sort of in the air, so we have Signal.
Yeah,
and,
right.
and BOAC is now sort of, they're very willing to expand and join in with other people.
And there's ICE. And
there's ICE,
yeah.
right? And there's probably going to be more. And I think that's great. I think it's really great because a lot of the really, I think, important literature of the late 20th and early 21st century is for large ensemble. Arvo Pärt does write for the orchestra, but
right.
that's not really what he does.
Right.
He really writes for ensemble. Louis Andriessen, same thing.
Right.
Phil Glass, same thing. I mean, well, he writes for everything, but I mean, the works that are most admired, it seems to me, are ensemble works.
Yeah.
John Adams is the one exception.
Yeah,
John Adams
right.
really is an orchestral composer
Right.
and was from the get-go.
Right.
But I mean, David Lang is predominantly, I mean, he's now shrinking down to solo voices. I mean, he's got nowhere to go but down. So, I mean, Cheating, Lying, Stealing is a great ensemble piece.
Yeah.
So, I think that every period in history, I mean, you look at Mozart, so the orchestra's like 30, 35 people, and then we have the clarinets, and maybe there's trombones, okay, so the string section has to get larger. Right. You've heard me go through this rap. And by the time you get to Wagner, you've got this huge brass section, you have to have this 18 first, 16 second, and then it freezes. Right. It just stays that way for very good acoustical reasons, because if you have that many brass players, well, then you need that many string players to play. But with the introduction of the microphone, which is not really taken seriously until after World War II. Right. Stravinsky's not terribly interested in the microphone. Bartok's interested in the microphone. And but in my generation, the generation of the 30s, suddenly the interest in the fact that we were all interested and brought up with a lot of pop and jazz, suddenly we began to see that, well, the microphone is, we're hearing all these records. A lot of our musical experience is through recorded sound. We want that detail, we want that sound, we want that possibility of balance. And I think that opened up the possibility to have a large piece with, 1-2 a part.
Right.
And that's the definition of an ensemble. Once you get 1-2 a part, you get this incredible clarity, which is what a lot of the early 20th century was about. I mean, Stravinsky said, I want an eighth note. I don't want a quarter note. I want an eighth note.
Right. Right.
Yeah. So to cut to the chase, I think at this period in history, the early 21st century, in a sense, you could say the people's, i.e. the people's like you and me, the people's orchestra is the amplified ensemble.
Right. Well, that gets into one of the questions that we were asked, which is, and you kind of answered it, what is your position today on the future of what you call the amplified ensemble back in your essay writings on music?
When I was young and brash and foolish, I predicted the future.
Right.
I've given
up.
Come
true, but I mean, that really is, that has happened. I mean, that's been...
Yes, a lot of things that I predicted have happened, but it doesn't mean that I'm now in a position to see. When you're young, you can predict things because you know that you intend to do them, right. And you know other people who intend to do them.
Right.
So your predictions are based on a sort of a group feeling, a consensus that you know is in the air that's moving.
Right.
I no longer have that. What's going on in Brooklyn is just a rumor to me.
Right.
I know a few things here and there. So and what's going on in Europe is entirely different from what's going on in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
So it's very hard to predict. Except that I think that the one thing I would say, the normal situation of the window being open between the street and the concert hall has been restored, and thank you, it was my generation that did that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it was always open from the Renaissance and Low Marmé, clear on up through Haydn and Beethoven and Bartok and Ives and Bartok, Ives, Copland.
Yeah, totally.
Everybody,
Gershwin. I mean, Gershwin have that.
Gershwin, what is he? Is he pop? Is he pop? Or is he classical?
Right.
Kurt Weill, he's the Weimar Republic Cabaret.
Right.
So this is the normal situation.
Yeah.
I was going to school in an abnormal period of time, the late 50s, early 60s, when the window was slammed shut, mostly because of the 12-tone school. And so I'd say that's the one thing I would predict, I think will stay open. And the other interesting effects are that we now have musicians who are conservatory musicians, like Mark Stewart, like Jonny Greenwood, like Bryce Desner,
right,
and like lots and lots of other people who can read anything you put in front of them, and who like to play rock and roll, so they do.
Right, right, yeah. Well, and that's, you know, in Alarm Will Sound, the Alarm Will Sound's 1969 show, we're really telling the story of the opening of that door again.
Right.
So, you know, and that's the kind of musician, I think, that's the kind of musician that we have in the group, too.
It is,
so it's,
yes.
It's a pertinent story for us.
Right.
And that gets into another question that is asked here, which is what, when you listen to music from the popular world, this person's asking, what do you particularly listen to?
I don't listen to that much, honestly. People usually shove something in front of my, you know, either send it to me or say, hey, you ought to check out. You know, the reason I did this radio rewrite piece was because I went to Krakow and they did a lot of my music, and one of the people there was Jonny Greenwood.
Right, we were there for that.
Yeah, he was there, so he saw the whole thing out. And so I met him and we talked, and I saw he's a great player. He's a trained violist. Right. He's been to Oxford, you know, he reads, he writes, you know, he's a rock star. you name it. And when I came back, I just thought, gee, you know, I got to check. I knew the name, I knew about them, but I hadn't really sat down to listen to things. So I just, you know, went online and started listening to the music, and these two tunes just said, you know, take me, I'm yours.
Right. And you did.
And I did in a way which, you know, I'm kind of glad that it's unclear as to, you know, where they are and where I am.
Right. I mean, you did very much make it your own.
Oh, it's my piece. There's no question about it.
Yeah.
Colin Greenwood, Johnny's brother was there. Johnny's brother was there at the Garage Festival Hall, and he had some very nice things to say that made me feel really good. He said he could hear the words, the way they sing it, and the meaning of the words in some of the music.
Wow.
Yeah, I really liked that.
Is he talking about like what's in the fourth movement in particular, or was he?
I don't remember. It was an intermission, and I was at the audio desk in the back of the orchestra, and he was sitting. Either he knew where I was, or he came there, and we had just a brief. How do you do? But there is a statement that he made that the BBC recorded, so you can.
Wow, that's really great. Yeah.
But I was really pleased. You know, I mean, it's nice to read good reviews, but you know.
Yeah, that's
when the guy in the band, you know, is a really first-rate musician, says I could even, you know, I felt the. You know, the familiarity, and that's what I was writing to you about that.
Right. In the fourth movement.
In the fourth movement there, where I really felt like, you know, that there's this build-up, and then suddenly there's this pleadingness, you know, what did you say to me, and if you don't capture that, I wanted to capture that, which was from the tune. Yeah.
And that's interesting. I mean, that's a part of the piece that sounds quite different. You know, for the, you know, is that Stravinsky quote, you know, what is this, second-rate composers, I'm getting it wrong, but basically second-rate composers borrow, first-rate composers steal. And you've stolen, I mean, you've made it like it's your sound, it's your piece. Yeah. That moment sounds different. That moment, it doesn't sound like Radiohead, but it's brought, I don't know, it's a different quality.
I just felt that when that I had overlooked something compositionally that needed to be done. When the vibes came in there, they were too harsh. That there wasn't the harmonies, which were something I had never done, and which didn't exist in the tune. We're building, and once it changes key and they really keep on going. Yeah. I thought, well, this needs to be brought out. Yeah. And then when it gets there, it kind of like it does die in a sense. And that's the kind of thinking I usually don't do. Yeah. You know, that kind of sort of emotional interpretive. Yeah. Thing. But here it just felt like I had to do it. So, you know. Yeah. I believe I don't like ideologues. I like people who, you know, follow their gut.
Right. That's a great moment in peace. Okay, so let's see. Something else you touched on a minute ago connects to another question which someone asked, which is, did you ever write pure instrumental 12-tone music?
Yeah. Last piece I wrote at Juilliard School of Music was a not very good, perhaps not to say terrible, 12-tone, strictly 12-tone string orchestra piece. It was about three minutes long. And the way I dealt with the row was never invert the row, never retrograde the row, never transpose the row, just repeat the row over and over again. Right. So it's at the end of my stay at Juilliard, and I took it out to Mills College in 61, showed it to Barrio. If you want to write tonal music, why don't you write tonal music? In my head, I said, easier said than done. Because in those days, if you wrote anything, you know, resembling tonal music, you were laughed at. Right. I mean, behind your back or to your face. And if you think I'm exaggerating, the titan of the age, Igor Stravinsky had to do it. Right. And I think a lot of, this is just my theory, but I think part of the reason, before Copland got sick and couldn't write, I think part of the reason that he just kind of like started, be lecturing, conducting, was the connotations, which was his attempt to. He realized that wasn't him. He didn't want to be an old fogey. He didn't want to, he knew he couldn't rewrite Appalachian Spring. So he just said, okay.
Right. I love connotations, though. I may be one of them in the minority on that, but I love connotations.
For me, I like the clarinet concerto, which is verging in
that
direction.
That's gorgeous.
Yeah, that is a beautiful piece. Yeah, the one he did for Stolzman.
Yeah.
But you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
In other words, it was a period where a lot of people just felt that what they wanted to do, if they did it, they'd be laughed at.
Right.
And I just felt, look, I didn't become a composer I could admire Schoenberg, but I became a composer because I love Stravinsky, because I love Bach, because I love bebop, Miles Davis, John Coltrane, and all these things were not on the menu. You could admire them in the past, but they're not something you do.
Right.
And if you do them, we don't take you seriously.
Right. And I think that even though that seems like a memory now, the world has so changed.
Well, this is just ex post facto thinking, but I'm thinking there was a period in the Middle Ages, around the 16th century, when counterpoint got so complicated we called it the Mannerist period.
Right.
And spontaneously you have the rise of the strong Baroque and opera.
Right.
Just saying, hey,
simple,
give me a melody, just give me some chord. And then in another way, J.S. Bach so completes, so fulfills the idea of continuing the contrapuntal tradition and absolutely creating the most complex, incredible vertical structure of harmonies that takes the Chopin to catch up to them, that his sons see it. They say, Dad's finished this, we got to find a new gig.
Right.
And their simplification leads to Haydn. And we do have a whole historical break, and it's never something that you can do. Hey kids, let's have a new style of music.
Right.
It's never an individual decision. It's a period in history when things have come to such a complication that they are just decaying and dying. And that's okay, because things do decay.
Right.
And David Lang said to me, he said, I envy when you were born. Very, very perceptive stuff. What do you mean? I think what he meant was, I was born in '36. I went to music school 50s, 60s. And in that period of time, German Romanticism is reaching its death. After Wagner, Debussy goes one way, but leaving the German side of it through Schoenberg is really, it's not to say that Schoenberg isn't a great composer, because Swallow is a great composer too, but we don't play him every day. And that's sort of where Schoenberg is at. It's okay, it's great, but it's not going to preserve German music for 1,000 years. It's just not about that. So I grew up at a time when something was acknowledged or unacknowledged, coming to its end, and it was therefore, if I had never been born, if Glass had never been born, if Arvo Pärt, somebody would have come along with a broom and said, this place is a mess, I got to clean it up. And I think that again, that fell to my generation, and it's the same thing with opening the doors to the popular world. To return, we didn't have a revolution, we had a restoration of harmony and melody in a brand new way.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And even though now that feels like a completed act, when Alarm Will Sound was starting and when we were all students, you felt the tension of that still. I remember, part of why the predecessor group to Alarm Will Sound, Osea, part of why we started that was because no one was playing this music at Eastman, and that felt at the time like a sort of dangerous kind of. It felt like an act. It felt like a breaking out of something. And I remember the first time I met you, in I think it was '94 or '95 when you came to MIT.
When Evan was there.
Yeah, that's right. And you came to MIT, and we were doing a whole concert of your stuff there. And I was an undergrad, and that was a big deal. And there were people. I'm not going to name names, but there were people in the music department. I remember. I can only think of one person. Okay. Walking out, making a point of leaving when you came in to talk, and there was a definite sense that this was something. There was a tension here, and
this was the end of it. But when my ensemble would tour in the late '70s and '80s and into the '90s, the audience at an American concert particularly would be dancers, choreographers, filmmakers, jazz musicians, pop musicians. Couple of composers, but no faculty members from the university. Right,
and that's changed.
Oh yeah, now it's like part of normalcy. But we're living at a time now where we're in, I mean, you know, if you sound like Molly, that's cool. If you sound like Laurie Anderson, that's cool. If you sound like me, that's cool. And I've often said to them, you know, I don't know who's got it easier.
Yeah,
I was up
that's
against
right.
the wall.
That's
so,
right.
You know,
you have something to push against.
I had something to push against. They don't.
Yeah, that's absolutely right.
But on the other hand, David Lang says, well, look, you know, we like what happened before, so we can carry it further. And David and Michael and Julie and Nico Muley and a whole lot of other people are carrying it forward.
Yeah.
And they really, I mean, Nico Muley says, you know, he's barely out of his 20s, and he says, you know, minimalism and Anglican church music.
Yeah.
And you can hear it.
Yeah,
you know?
totally.
So that makes me feel very good, because when I first started doing this, I felt, you know, this is really a fertile ground.
Yeah.
Because it's rooted in something that's really, it's old stuff, it's not new stuff. It's just being attacked in a new way.
Yeah. But I think David's comment is really brilliant. That there is a special opportunity.
Very, very, very perceptive guy.
Yeah, he's absolutely right. You couldn't do that in quite the same way.
No, it's like saying, hey kids, let's start a religion.
Yeah.
You can start a cult, yeah, but you can't start a religion.
Right. All right, let me jump to another question from the internet. How has your approach to repetition changed throughout the last couple of decades?
Less of it.
Yeah. That's part of what makes like the 50-minute radio rewrite challenging, is that there's a groove, but the repetition, you know, things are always changing.
The piece I'm writing now, I'm really wondering, is there any continuity there at all anymore? I feel like I'm writing, you know, Jure or something weird. I mean,
you could do worse.
Yeah, I know, but somehow he made it all hang together. I'm not sure. I think I am, but
what's the piece?
It's a quartet for Colin Curry and for Danny Druckmann.
Oh, cool.
And two pianos, two vibes.
Cool.
Just very pared down, but very. I mean, you'll see.
Yeah.
You're a pianist. You'll go at it.
Okay. I can't wait. So you're finding you're using that less repetition even than in a piece like Radio.
Well, things recur, but they don't recur right after. I don't build up many grooves. Sometimes I have to go out of the way to kind of make some melodic stuff happen. But what I'm really doing is sort of varying the stuff that I've done, changing key a lot, a whole lot of things I never did. But I just feel, let's go with this. You know.
Wow. Well, that's following that intuition again.
Yeah. Well, I think, you know, once you stop doing that, you might as well take up, you know, gardening.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or something useful.
Yeah. Let's see. Okay, this is a long one. I read that it's going to rain in the phasing process, which resulted from it, came about by an accident, and this reminded me of a quotation from Brian Eno: "Fire the arrow and then paint the bullseye around it." Do you think there's any truth to that? The idea that artists make mistakes, consciously or not, and then try to make sense of them afterwards. Do you think that accidents are an important part of a creative process?
Well, as for Brian Eno, he's been very, 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 very gracious about it and saying that it's going to rain and come out where really, you know, started his career as a composer. And I met him, and we played a concert in London at Queen Elizabeth Hall, '74. End of the concert, guy comes up, long hair, lipstick, says, "How you doing, I'm Brian Eno." And I think, you know, poetic justice. I'm the kid sitting at the bar stool at Birdland in 1950s listening to Miles Davis, and he's there listening to me. Accidents. You could, you know, there are two ways of looking at accidents. There are religious people who say there are no accidents. I would say that no matter how you look at it, something happened which I hadn't predicted. What I wanted to do was just have these two identical loops.
Right.
It's going to rain, and I wanted to have them do it's going to rain, and it was sort of, so to speak, 180 degrees apart from each other.
Right.
In a canonic relationship.
Right.
By chance, I put these two loops on these little Valençat tape recorders, and I fired them up, and I had headphones on with one jack going into one machine, one jack going into the other machine, and the odds are very high against it being in dead unison, and it was. And the effect of it was that the sound appeared to be in the center of my head, and then seemed to move to the left side, and down my left ear, and down my left shoulder.
As it phased.
Out of phase. Now what's really happening is that the machine that you hear first appears to be on that side. In other words, when we echolocate each other, the sound that gets to us first is the one that we follow. Right. That's the direction, because that's in fact what's happening.
Right, right.
So this is what's happening in the phasing process, only, you know, on a micro level. Anyway, I finally was just sort of transfixed by the whole thing, and then when it finally got to it's going to rain, I thought, well, that's cool, but getting there is much more interesting than being there.
Right.
So then I had no hesitation. I said, this was a eureka moment. In other words, yes, how I arrived there, accident, divine gift. The fact is, it happened.
Right.
The question is, what do you do about it?
Right.
And somebody could say, and go back and try to get
Right.
It's
not what I wanted.
That's
not the plan.
Screw it up again. So I think it's recognizing something of musical force and musical intelligence, musical magnetism.
Right.
That is something that people have or they don't, and when they have it, then they get a kick out of things which don't work. You see people, how many times have you been in rehearsal? Something goes on, but somebody laughs. They laugh because in a way it's kind of nice.
Right.
It might have been nicer than what was written.
Right.
So that's just, but other people just blank,
Right.
and they don't. So I was fortunate to be able to, to capitalize on what certain people could say was an error or an accident or whatever you want to call it. But that is in fact what happened.
I mean, that's what's interesting about that is it goes back to what you were saying before about intuition in your compositional process and how you follow things to
processes.
Right.
Eliminate changes to pitches, eliminate changes of timbre, have interlocking ensembles of the same instrument, and make all the changes rhythmic. Okay, true. But I wrote in that book, and I meant it, I said, at base, everything I've ever done has been via musical intuition.
Right.
How fast does it go from, it's got 30 seconds, it could take 10 minutes.
Right.
What's the right time?
Right.
Don't
Feel
know.
it, right.
I got to listen to it a few times to figure it out.
Right.
So no matter how far you reduce a quote systematic choice, there's going to be an area that you're going to have to make a decision.
Right.
And that decision, in my case, and I think a lot of composers who start out, generally young men can be very dogmatic.
Right.
I certainly was. And then begin to realize that field of decision grows.
Right.
And that area grows. And then you either reject that and close it out and cling to a system, or you simply say, well, look, I'm no longer the same person.
Right. That's a fascinating dichotomy, I feel like, in you and your work, is on one hand being a person who does do things systematically, but then on the other hand, also being someone who's open to spontaneity and to trying something new and to following something in a new direction when you find something you're excited about.
Right. The piece before Radio Rewrite was supposed to be a 15-man counterpoint piece with 15 people on stage, 50 people in the audience, and I had a very clear idea what it was, and I started to do it, and it was terrible. It was awful. It was like two elephants on stage trying to dance with each other.
We were talking in that time.
So
this is the piece you were originally going to write for us.
Exactly.
Right.
You were going to get, and it was going to be a click track, or you would have loved this piece. So I finally realized, this is just terrible. This is just awful. So I threw it away.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
We're happy with what we got. Well, so I'll ask two more questions from our internet friends.
Okay.
One is, which sort of connects to that, what's your favorite and least favorite work that you've composed and why?
No. Well, there are a few on the top. Obviously music for 18 musicians and drumming and different trains and Tehillim. And maybe double sextet and maybe sextet and pieces that I have I am self-critical. I think music for a large ensemble is not one of the greatest pieces I ever wrote. I think Variations for Wind Strings and Keyboards is just sequences till the end of time. A lot of people love it, but
yeah, I have a friend for whom that is his favorite piece of yours. He loves that piece.
Well, tell him you should write a nice critical article about it.
He probably has.
Good, but it's not mine. So I mean, I think it's important to have a certain amount of self-criticism.
Yeah.
Too much will paralyze you.
Right.
Too little will blow you up into everything I do is perfect, and that's generally not the case.
All right. So one more. This last question. I know who submitted this. This comes from Dennis DeSantis, who was Alarmable Sound's percussionist until he stopped playing percussion and left us. Now he works for a software company doing music software work. His question is, would you rather fight 100 duck-sized horses or one horse-sized duck?
No comment.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Steve.
You're more than welcome. This was fun.
Thanks for doing this.
This is the most interesting interview I've had in a long time.
Oh, good.
And I've had a lot of interviews in England.